Okay, we have quorum, we could start the meeting.
Yeah, hi Dan, hi David.
We have in front of us
Barbara says she's on the road, so.
we have the draft of the minutes from August. That's what that is. We
Look at that.
need
I can do
to
both at the same time.
review these. Dan, I'd really like to do this. Make sure you get to see them. It's the community engagement, the minutes for that are in this. So we need to review these and.
For the last time's minutes. You're saying, yeah. I have to go back to the beginning. That's right. Oh, whoops.
I'm wondering if in the minutes. Under that community engagement, if the. Recommendations were. Were strongly. I won't say approved, but were strongly accepted by the. Members of the historic board, that is one of the components, and that overall people were very pleased with the presentation. If we can add something like that.
That's it. Yeah.
David's like water.
What's that?
Would you like water?
Yeah, thank you.
So
Maybe worth including those drafts too,
Were those the documents you had sent to me?
yes,
just as a form of record keeping. So it's somewhere. If that's possible. Yeah. But that way, if we go, oh yeah, what happened to those, and we want to look back, we can say. What did you think of that, by the way? Since we're on the topic.
Yeah, it's good to do process improvement. One thing for me that's really challenging, I don't know if I'm allowed to speak on this, we're doing this item right now, but the presentations need to be in person. Like having people present to us through Zoom is completely dysfunctional.
Yeah, it's difficult.
okay, so, but as far as these minutes go, is there a motion to approve them?
With the amendments, of course.
Reviews of that. Yes, with the amendments.
Okay.
Then I second.
All in favor,
Aye.
Okay.
anyone opposed? Thank you for these, Desiree.
Do you want to? Oh, it's gonna get feedback if we do that. I just want to make sure. Jason, can you tell us if you can hear us?
These,
Yes, I could hear you.
Okay, great. Just checking.
so the items on our agenda included talking about the meeting rubric and moving forward with how that can go. And I think that for the meeting movement, which is how we will conduct our meetings as we move forward. And is there any questions or concerns? You said that it was for it wasn't the meeting movement, but it's the other one, which was the process, the applicant presentation, was your recommendation was for in person. But anything on the meeting rubric, anything different or?
So I don't know if we want to, how do you want to approach that?
So there's just one paragraph that our city attorney had issued with, but had already
Yeah.
taken it out or planned to
Amended
take it out.
Yeah, based on your comment last time, this is the exact same kind of thing, but.
But other than that, that is, it's fine to give to the dog. For, how it wants to run its. Staff has no issue with what was proposed.
Which paragraph? Was it from this original from last time?
Yes, it's the one about.
So let me. So this is the amended version. Let me bring up the old one. My mouse back. This might be still too strong, so we can amend this however anybody wants to. I'm not attached to it. That come up there? Great. Nope, that's, hang on. Yeah, no, this is draft. Yeah, draft. Okay, hang on.
If you're bringing something up on the screen, it's not being shared.
Oh, whoops, yes, it's not being shared, he said. I can do that. Okay, so maybe I didn't change this as I thought. So we may need to do some work on this. I thought I had a different draft, but maybe I saved the wrong thing, which means I messed up.
It's Microsoft that messed you up.
It could be.
Well, I did just not her.
Oh,
That bottom paragraph?
no, yeah, it was just that paragraph, if I remember right. But basically, what I remember changing was, something, getting rid of the presentation rubric component entirely, because that's what we discussed, but, more or less having it follow the checklist, right? And if we feel that there's something that's missing that would prevent the application from being reviewed as a complete application, right? Then we continue it to the next time and ask them to come prepared with that information. So let me do this.
Can I go back a step?
Yeah.
Also, it's not being shown, so I think you have.
Oh, right, sorry, yes, fair enough.
I'd like to go back to the very top of that application presentation. One of the things I really like that the PRS does, that Terry does at the beginning of that section of their meeting every time, is the basis on which these are reviewed. She says we review these in accordance with city code, names the code, plus the design guidelines, plus the Secretary of the Interior's modified standards.
So
That kind of sets it up for the applicant to know that we're serious. We're not just doing this off the top of our heads.
We
Where-
can set up an agenda like that.
Huh?
We can set the agenda, because she's reading off the agenda, so we can set up these meetings.
Oh, that'd be
Yeah,
great.
that'd be great. Yeah, because then it's right there. In front of everything.
this statement that the first presentation essentially then becomes part of.
Yeah, it's on the agenda, so it wouldn't be like on you to figure that out, we would provide that. Just agenda.
Okay. And Dan, is that an okay revision of what you've presented?
Say it again. Just, you're saying to modify this or to modify the agenda?
You can modify the agenda, but the chair still starts the review section of the agenda with that language about how the review is conducted.
Yeah.
Right?
So it would include, I'm thinking it would include this whole first paragraph. It's the ID case number. You know, from
Mhm.
applicant, and we know who's here to present. Regarding wherever it is and that name and. In here, we also ask, what's your affiliation with the property? We will be reviewing based on. The design review guidelines, the city code. Whatever, and making that a complete paragraph.
Mhm.
And. So. Is that? Okay, sound good? Anybody have any questions, Dan, concerns?
No, it should be fine.
And then this next part, which is we ask them to present. And we let them present in their entirety before there's any discussion. There could be clarification questions, but not really discussion about any of the points that they presented. Then upon completion of the and I actually think that even this information can be modified a bit so that they know this is what we're doing. That we will be sitting back, we may ask for clarification, but we will wait until your presentation is complete. For our discussion. And we will at that time. Also be asking you to withhold further comment while we are discussing and deliberating what we've heard. Is that what you've meant, and does that
Yes.
meet? Okay. Okay, good. And then that last paragraph. We're saying this one
So-
isn't.
Let me see if this is more or less what I tried to bring this to.
Maybe it's a tad bigger on the
Sure.
Zoom in the corner. Thank you. Awesome.
Yeah, then this might get in the way. Go back here, now share the other thing. Stop that. Share. So. That one. Okay, so. Same first line. But instead of it being based on a presentation rubric. We continue it, ask them to come prepared for the next meeting if they don't have a formal presentation. So basically, if they come in and ask, well, okay, what questions do you have for us? Then we say, oh, do you have a presentation prepared? They say no. We say, okay, well, we're going to continue this till next time. Please come prepared, right?
So would it take, when you use move there, do you mean a formal motion to?
I think you have to make a motion to continue, right?
And I'm not sure about that first section,
Okay,
because that's. Could be interpreted as a refusal to do the review, and what's required by the code is that they have to provide. The documentation, right, site plan, or whatever
Mhm.
is needed for that particular.
Yeah.
Doesn't necessarily require that they give. So I'm not sure about that. But certainly if there's information missing that you need to do your review, you can continue the case and ask.
so.
Completed application.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or does not have presented.
Provided full documentation. And I have a question, Desiree, is since the city is actually filtering these materials to us, are you able to make an intervention upstream of this board meeting to say? These documents will not be sufficient for this board to complete a review?
Yes, and that actually is our role, that is our purview to bring you cases when staff deems that they're ready. So if, so yeah, it's really the board's job to review what we provide. And if there is truly some piece of information missing, then you can continue the case and ask for that, but we have staff vetting that, making sure everything is included. And so that's something that, we're looking to improve upon. Right now, we've been, the last year, kind of in a survival mode, and catch-up mode. But moving forward, we're looking at checklists and things like that to improve the applications that we're getting. Also, the application meeting with staff and tell people about the process, or sometimes people, if they're not familiar with the process, they might not realize they have to go to two board or two committees, right? Sometimes you see. I've had a few cases where they come to an advisory board and they think that they're done. That's just the beginning of the process, right? So I think, kind of a pre-application meeting with staff to go over the requirements, to go over the process, manage expectations on the timeline, things like that, is something that.
And then as part of the pre-app, that's a great juncture to be sharing. Come do a courtesy review. You're at the beginning of your process, or hopefully maybe they're more towards the beginning of their process than like already into their design phase.
Yeah.
But really encourage, like, for the city to step up and encourage people to be getting here for a courtesy review. I think is gonna be just incredibly supportive to just a greater level of harmony and everybody grouping up before the money is getting laid out to the designers. And people are already timelining and trying to schedule contractors and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, I think really like having more informal conversations before people are doing their applications is gonna be so supportive about what this board reviews and the documents aren't always totally interpretable, like coming in and discussing your window choices before ordering them would be better. So, yeah, thank you. That's kind of outside of the scope of our meeting, but space, but it flows in harmony with people coming to this room.
Do you want to talk about the quality too?
Mhm.
Cause sometimes, especially homeowners. Don't have the level, they don't wanna have to pay for an architect to draw a site plan, for example, or to draw elevations.
Mm.
So what do you do? I mean, but this isn't just a problem here.
Yeah, it's challenging. And I think we want to be friendly to people who are, drawing.
Trying to do it themselves, yeah.
So, I mean, that could be another reason that we have that pre-application, sort of walk through what is needed for a particular review. For full reviews, and they do require more, like minor reviews, we see a lot of more formal,
Mhm.
exhibits. We can get away with things like exhibits and photos and brochures and product brochures. For full reviews, it is better to have dimension plan, right plan, so, yeah, we just try to work with the applicants and provide that feedback. Some require more, assistance or feedback, than others, and so it's just a matter of looking at to state.
And can you talk also a little bit about the timing of when they go to? When do they go to your office? Is it immediately, they file for a permit and they immediately get directed before they start to do design? Or do they go to building first or?
In terms of like a pre-application or just
Yeah.
how it works now?
Well, I'm gonna do a project. Do I start? I don't know that I have to do a historic review until I apply for a permit, right? And then I get a notice that it's a historic zone and you have to apply for a review. But do most people ordinarily start with design with? The compliance with the historic requirements, or do they start with the building section?
Yeah.
Building codes.
So, our process now is on TDC online. Applicants will have to submit a general permit application. And so. All of the reviewers have 30 days to do their first review. And it goes to historic, and so zoning does not do their review, but we've done our review. So it's a little bit of both, like there's some, I guess simultaneous or concurrent review, but also the sections tend to defer to historic, and they wait until we, have our comments, before they move forward with their review. So, and good question.
I'd like us to finish this. I think it was really valuable information, but I'd really like to complete this. I think the
But
agenda.
I'm saying these not out of the blue, but because it relates to this section, right? It relates to preparedness of the application.
But it doesn't, it does. It is about preparedness, but it doesn't have to do with how we're gonna run our meeting. our meeting is still going to run to, we either say it's not complete or it's not, or it's complete and keep going. I'd like to finish this because I think that comes into those processes that Dan presented about what we were hoping we would get from the city. So it's not.
So that's also something we need to talk, that's
That's a
item
different-
2 and 3 from the last, you
Yeah,
know.
it's a different part
Mhm.
of this though, because if we're
Yeah.
happy with the way this is, we can complete this and move on to that.
Mhm.
But I think I really would like to make
Yeah.
sure we,
The only thing that plays into that is that, so part 2 of what I presented last time was this presentation rubric, right?
that's right.
And so the issue, I don't know if you want to jump in or do you want me to say that, I'll say it and you can tell me if I'm right. The issue is we cannot dictate a presentation rubric. So according to the city attorney, we cannot, which you
Yeah.
probably already know because we talked to Desiree as well. We cannot say that you have to have these elements within a presentation, and you know, as you said, according to the code, there's no presentation even required, which I'm kind of surprised about, but I guess that makes sense. So in other words, we're stuck with sort of, we can run our own thing and say we would like to see these elements, right? We feel that these are components of a complete application, right? But we can't a priori say these are components of a complete application. So
And we can't refuse to evaluate it or to check it based on what's not there.
right.
But
So that's where this runs into trouble is, and that's why this section is kind of critical, because we basically need to say, we need to keep the wording, I think, vague enough to say, if a presentation is not complete enough, we can't review it in its entirety. But we also need to base that on what's already extant within the city's published materials. So.
They're tweaking a little bit
Mhm.
today, instead of, because really, if it's not a complete application, it won't be coming to you, right? And that
Right.
staff determines that.
Okay.
So I would say if the board feels something like this, the board needs more information. And would like to request that information,
Mhm.
then the item can be continued. I mean, sometimes items are continued because the board needs more time to decide, right? Sometimes it doesn't necessarily have to do with.
Like a site visit might be required or something.
Yeah, or, you know, sometimes it just takes time and they're not making
Yeah,
decisions.
digest it.
Yeah. With that said. The board can continue an item once. After that, the board can't continue an item unless the applicant is prepared to they approve of it and continue it at a second time. And so an item could be continued here, you have PRS, so we just wanna make sure we're not. We're only using that really when necessary. Yeah. Actually, for meetings, so before they get. Answer.
Okay, so.
And what is the
That-
timeline? Once they've submitted and it goes to review.
So we have, we actually just reduced our timeline from initial, that first completeness review from 30 days to 7 days. To get them, so that they can have time in there to store sub-record. Which I think is helping. And then that second substantive review, and this is when it would go to the boards, for minor reviews, that's 15 days, for full review, it's 20 days.
I'm sorry, say it again, which is 15?
Minor.
Minor, it's 15 days. And then the full is 20.
So that 15 and 20 include the time we have to make our decision. So what if it falls, this is tricky, because what if it falls on sort of the middle of a month between meetings? Right, so you have half a month of,
Yeah.
yeah,
You, it ends up being closer to 30 days or 30 calendar days.
yeah, yeah, twice, 20
Right.
business days, 30 calendar.
Yeah, and each review, it's like the clock starts again, so if
Right.
we get the done, and that's another review, then it's another 30 days, so. That's how it's been, 30
Yeah.
days has been the, you know,
Yeah.
20/30 days.
Okay, so it's been 20 business days before, okay, I thought it was, I thought we're decreasing it from 30 business days to 20. Yeah. Good enough.
the full review, yeah, we have to, we're not changing that. We're trying to make it so that the minorities, truly are the difference. In the company.
And I'd like to make a point, but it goes back to what Dan just typed in, where it says the board can move to continue the application to the next meeting. This is something that we have dealt with regarding another HPC. The board can move, but the applicant has to agree for it to be continued. If the applicant doesn't agree, then you guys need to make a decision up or down if they don't agree to the continuance.
The second continuance.
Oh, so that, did you hear that?
So that's, yeah, that's at the second continuance, so the board can continue it once on their own, and then any
Okay.
further continuances would need to be, the applicant needs to consent to that. And sometimes they do, because they would rather extra time to make their case, provide information, and get a positive recommendation versus. So, but a lot of them don't, you know, they don't. Okay, so I'll have to go through the PRS as well.
Okay. Does that help? I include that. So I think the only thing, I mean, I don't have a good EG, we can just leave it at that. I think the only thing that's less explicit here is that, okay, what does that mean needs more information, right? And do we want to make that more of a complete thought, right? So that if we're mired in a hard case and we think to ourselves, God, isn't there something that we voted in to say that we need more time or so? What are those things? I mean, I guess we can do it, you know, we can just keep that in our back pocket as something, you know, we have that tool, but do we want to add something to this that gives us a little more of a descriptive indicator of that?
No, I think there could just be instances where maybe you have 3 reviews in a month and someone is trying
Yeah.
to build a new gate element,
Mhm.
which is completely different than an entire house
Yeah.
being constructed. And like, in fairness to all of our applicants, we need to hear all of these cases, but a major house structure getting built or a full guest house would require more extensive time that just may not even be provided for in the limitations of our meeting. And or yeah, literal digestion time for larger concepts, above and beyond 35 minutes
Yeah.
block.
So that kind of actually plays into the third element of what I presented last time, which was that the preparation component. So the third thing that we discussed last meeting was having ample time for well, not even ample, enough time for preparation prior to reviewing a case. So let's say for whatever reason and you know, just as a example that would never happen in reality, if we're given 4 cases on a Friday night before a Monday meeting, that's not enough time. And so we want to be able to say, we want to continue these so that we can, so I think in talking with Desiree, what it sounds like is we have the ability to do that in those worst case scenarios. That shouldn't happen because they're working diligently to make sure it doesn't. But so I think that covers more or less that component of it. Which is something worth mentioning in this, but so. Yeah, I mean, I guess what I'm getting at is we want to make sure this paragraph covers that insofar as, will this be made available other than just in the minutes? Is there any way to,
Website.
Okay. yeah, I mean, just so if somebody's looking through this and they're saying, oh, this is what they're gonna expect, and, you know, yeah. Yeah,
One thing I'm feeling as I've read it and reread it is that the first, we've got all this and we're trying to describe what they need to bring to us. I'd really like to emphasize that we're really evaluating it against Fort Lowell Historic District and any other districts guidelines. And I don't see that in here, but if you
Yeah.
do, tell me.
No, that's a
And
good point. I
And it
think
I just wanna make sure that that's,
that goes back to the
No.
way we open the meeting as PRS does. Like we were saying, right, either put it in the agenda, and actually we should put it in here, so if we wanna add that wording.
and
Everyone says read it, so here's the presentations, presentation is by so-and-so from so-and-so at such and such an address. That this would be the place to add that wording, I think, so.
They're being reviewed in accordance.
Yes,
with the-
applications are reviewed. Reviewed, how do you wanna word this?
In accordance or per the UCD, the Portable Historic Guidelines, Design Guidelines and. And according to the Secretary of State Interior.
Does that sound like what you're after?
That's what we talked about earlier, yeah.
Yeah.
And like she said, it's you can put on the agenda that way
yeah,
and then
be
just
another
say it
component
again.
And say it
Mhm.
again, I
Yeah.
think it just needs to be,
These are design guidelines.
not said,
Thank you.
oh, thank you.
Guidelines and.
Tucson's UCD.
They already got language.
What's that?
There's already language on the PRs that says.
It
So,
actually helps us because, the agenda item from the board to the PRS agenda, now you'll have to add it into the PRS agenda. You have to do it anyway, so just do it.
If anybody gets cold or hot, it's gonna be modified.
standards, is this what they're called, preservation standards? From
So you-
Oh.
the US. Interior, is that right? Interior, roar. Okay. So, if you could read that and just make sure I didn't miss something. Okay, so. I think most of this is pretty straightforward up to that point. There's relevant.
And just
Yeah.
just due to the fact that this clarification about presentation or application, I think you can probably interpose the application for presentation in all instances.
Okay.
And the applicant, if they choose to, may present. And if not, we're gonna skip the presentation and go directly to discussion based on the plans, right? But it just seems like that's a
yeah.
problematic language and we should just move it out.
So. Yes, yeah, present their applications entirely for discussion. So, well, I think rather than say, we do want to encourage them to present the application. So I think having some wording that says, something like this, right? Is because I mean, effectively what it's trying to avoid is that thing that keeps happening where they come and they say, okay, let us have it. And we're like, no, you let us have, like you the other way around, like you gotta tell us what you're gonna do.
Maybe just have the opportunity to present their application.
Well, I think we should encourage them to.
I think,
mean,
and I think that's something, well, we're gonna build a pool.
If somebody
Okay.
says.
That's the
there's somebody-
application
That's the
presentation
application, is that all?
I don't have a
Yeah.
presentation,
I don't have a presentation.
well,
Yeah.
then
Tell
you
us
just
about
talk
it,
us through what
Yeah.
you're planning to do.
Yeah.
and
yeah.
then see. That,
Sure, should we include that wording or is this?
Encourage a I can see you can say you can encourage it, it strengthens their case if they have a presentation. If they don't, then
well, I think that what's happening here, though, if we're looking at this as a rubric, this is what we're going to say. And they're gonna start with something and then, but it's not part of this. This is actually describing what is said and stated to the applicant. So,
I do want to add that this is, I meant this less as a perfect script and more as an outline,
but.
so.
Yeah.
Of course, you can read right from it is the idea that would be the ideal scenario that every meeting goes exactly the same way. But yeah, it's not to say that you can't interleave, it's not, you don't have to stick to the script as it were.
Sure, these are the highlights of that. Dan, I think it
Yeah.
comes back to the points that we've all agreed on, is
Yeah.
that we are looking for a more organized and format.
Mhm,
I mean, that's- So I don't think there's a problem, maybe you say, different word for decision or something, I'm not, but I
Yeah.
think we want to just keep with the sense of.
Okay. Yeah, so if, how about, do it this way, if there is something, maybe we can read this little bit, right? So applications are reviewed with that, so we already did that. If we can read these 4 mini paragraphs and just make sure that everybody's happy with this, and if not, tell me what to add. Otherwise, we'll move on to seeing if we want to accept this.
Question, so it's the third paragraph. Last sentence, once the decision is reached, the board will vote to accept or reject the application.
Mhm.
I would, instead of that, something that's responsibility to accept the application
Uh-huh.
package, but say the board would vote to recommend.
Or make motion.
Or
Yeah.
modification.
So wait, say that one more time, to recommend.
So you're either recommending conditions, a continuance or
With conditions, continuance,
Or denial.
or is that fine, denial?
Of the
Or.
application.
Patient.
so you can accept an application, but
Right.
have comments on it.
Once a decision is reached, the board will vote to recommend approval with conditions, continuance, or denial of the proposed project. Is that, everybody's happy with that?
Yeah, is it now redundant to talk more about the continuance?
I think it helps it. I mean, think about somebody who is not in these meetings. That's my
Mhm.
goal, right? Is somebody who is,
Okay.
comes onto the board in 3 months and, is reading from this, right? That's the idea.
And oftentimes you do get into conversations where people use the word like rejection or
Mhm.
whatever.
Yeah.
And it's up to the chair to go, kind of go back to that statement and say, we're here to recommend. And then we make a recommendation, the PRS makes a recommendation. We can approve with conditions, we can deny, or we can ask you if you want to continue.
And would this be the place to include that next step is then thereafter? You're saying no, because Ray's saying yes, but that.
It's up to you, I mean, you don't have to, I know what KRS does, for example, they kind of ask, do you know the next steps, or do you want information about the next steps? Or she'll say, you need to talk to Desiree or Jason, whoever, about next steps.
Okay.
To continue forward with the city process, that's the next step. Reach out to the city.
I think that's fine, if you wanna, say something brief, but for interest of time, as you might have multiple of these. Okay.
I mean, yeah, we can. We could say that also ahead of everything, upon completion of your. Once the board has reached the decision, you can reach out to the city to follow up, for next steps, something like this. So,
Matter.
And you can even say, staff will follow up with next steps. Short, but so that they know.
and after. Month, I really? Oh, gross. Give me what I'm thinking here. Follow up with city staff to.
Steps.
Spotties. Take it. Oh. That's great. Yeah, no, I'm thinking of it worded towards somebody, but of course, if there's 7 people in the room applying for something, then
Does anybody want to see this from start to finish again?
And then there's one little bit at the end here that these are just recommendations. So additional agenda items, adjournments. And then these. Yes,
The motions.
the motions. So. I think they're all pretty straightforward. We recommend that the application be accepted. Yes, these are approved, thank you. As per we recommend the application be approved. If the following conditions are met, recommend that the application be, is that okay?
We use
Denied,
deny.
denied. Yes, okay, and we moved that, and then this is just to, reiterate that the full motion needs to be stated clearly so that, when somebody, but I think one of the issues that's happened maybe once or twice now is that the PRS, when they get our recommendations, it's not as clear as it could be, right? And so if we make it crystal clear, tell them 3 different ways, right? Or you tell them the same thing 3 times, then, it'll definitely make it into the, the recommendation.
It
So,
seems to me that this is more of like a support tool and not part of, like, that this shouldn't be published to the website.
oh,
It's just a script, I mean, it's just
Yeah,
an
just-
outline for.
But
when
like
we-
This section, yeah.
this particular section,
Yeah.
this here about just
The board
how
member.
how motions should be coming out of us,
Yeah.
to me doesn't seem like a
Right, it's not.
a formal part of the process. This is our minimum responsibility as a board.
true, yeah, I mean, it just helps to reiterate it, I think, like if it's there. Again, I'm thinking of somebody like me who came onto the board and had no idea how any of this was supposed to work. If I had a document that told me, it would be, oh, that's very clear,
But I don't know if it's like for the public process and more like a training tool for new board members or a welcome packet for new board members. This other part, I think, is great for the public. Public facing document. I think it's a little awkward to include how we format our motions.
How is this public facing?
I thought.
Well, we're gonna-
We're talking about putting it on the website, on the city's
City's
website.
website?
Mhm.
I would put it under, you worry about like our materials and agenda. There, and then we would have it on file, provided to applicants at a time, that's.
Yeah, then in that case, you don't need the motion, I mean, this is just Robert's
Oh.
rule of order.
Yeah.
but-
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's appropriate for the intent of the upper part of the document. They're kind of disconnected. I think it's a great tool for new board members and for internal training though, to review the components of a motion.
Okay, it's fine. Now, if only I can get the adjournment onto the same page. Dang it. I don't know what's gonna happen.
Well, and maybe we don't need that adjournment as part of that either, because that, or an additional agenda items, this is. Maybe, I mean, are they, because again, this goes into, this is what's gonna happen
Some of the
with you,
agenda, some of the agenda.
Mhm.
and that would just be on the agenda. Yeah.
The only other thing I'd say is, the process of this part of it is that they try to stick to the motion. And then that's where things get messy,
Mhm.
is that, you have a motion, no second and discussion. But, and then you
Yeah.
have to go back and say, wait a second.
I
this
think that
isn't
was
second.
my point in including something about it,
Yeah.
it's just that we should have something that says, okay. The motion that was made needs to be very, very clear.
Yeah,
Crystal clear, stated 5 times, just make sure that anybody who is not present at this meeting could look back at it and say, okay, that's exactly why they did what they did.
and then
Right.
amend it, need to amend it. And then. Resecond it.
But I think you make a good point, because once we've discussed it, somebody makes a motion, there's still room for more discussion based on.
And they can
Those
withdraw their
points.
motion, or they can, get a second or not get a second. If you don't get a second, you don't discuss it, I mean, it's.
So do we want to include that in here as a question, and how?
It's
You
just
know, I think
for-
as a team, we need to be aware that this is our requirement as a. Is to, and I think it's just good to say it to each other, we need to be really, really clear. In our motions, especially the ones related to design review. And over iterate. Any, conditions
Right.
especially,
Right.
which is, we're getting feedback from PRS, you're saying that sometimes our conditions are.
I wouldn't say it's feedback. I'd say that it was a we weren't quoted very well, put it that way.
All right.
You know, it wasn't, I don't think it was made clear enough what our intentions were with our motion, right?
And those are coming directly from the meeting minutes,
No, we're coming from the city,
but aren't they
city's
collected in the,
restating them.
as part of the minutes too, right? Like,
Do they get the
Yeah,
minutes?
it's the LAR,
Yeah,
but really basically they get the LAR. It's the motion.
maybe we want the city to read back the motion, that they're capturing from the, from the
That's
board
a
meeting,
good
to be
idea.
sure
Yeah.
that we are feeling.
Yeah.
And we can just simply ask for that, can the
Mhm.
city representative please read back the motion that's gonna be forwarded to PRS, especially for the more complicated. Case reviews, like, we can seek that clarity within the meeting, right? So next meeting.
Yeah. We've been doing that, we haven't been doing that consistently. Sure to do that, but recent cases we have.
Okay, great, yeah,
Great.
So. We need to agree to adopt this.
And so this is another element that we need to discuss really quick before we do so.
Okay.
Well, it's not that we can't adopt it as a rule of procedure, from what I understand. It's just that it would be an undue burden for city staff is more or less my take, right?
The rules of procedure is like a full-on document, and so you have to
Okay.
have that with this attached to that.
Right.
But you can adopt this as your script.
Right. So that's what I was saying. It was like, basically, how do we formalize this so that it's an in-house proceeding or an in-house element of process, or, you know, standard operating procedure,
practice.
without sort of dipping our toes into that more legal component of things, right? So what do we want to call this? Do we want to have multiple of these in the future? Do we want to make more? Is it, I mean, we can just say we have a standard operating procedure and just keep that as a in-house document, as it were. I don't know where this would be stored necessarily, but the chair could just pass along a copy, you know.
Everybody should have it.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
I mean, I guess, you know,
everybody should have it.
what would be ideal is if it was, I mean, bylaws, right, should be given out when somebody joins the board, right? And not that this should be a bylaw per se, but, you know, there should be a document that goes along with that, is what my thinking is, right? So something, yeah, like whether we call it an SOP, whether we call it, you know, whatever. But
meeting
yeah.
format appendix, maybe.
So,
That's, if we get procedure out of there and
protocol.
de-escalate the language, like, this is the format
Yeah.
that we run these meetings by.
Mhm. So, you know, if that actually brings up another good question, though, is, you know, I think you and I talked about that briefly, Mary Lou, is are the bylaws, how are the bylaws updated? And near as I can tell, they aren't, at least they haven't been. And if so, and maybe this is a better question for you, how do we go about reviewing them to make sure they're up to what we want them to be, and that they include maybe some of the more, you know, modern elements of the digital age, right? So that we, you know, they're
They're published in the city. Published by the city.
I'm not familiar with them, I'd
Yeah.
love to learn about that.
Because the bylaws really came about with the original district, with the original county district. And they really are just a way to operate. It's just, it's more like an operating procedure.
It talks about
Mhm.
Officers,
the officers and the associate membership and.
and the fact that we have money that a lot of other boards don't have. Because we sell books, you know, what do we do with the money?
Can we just put it as part of our board member welcome packet?
It'd be nice if it was a more formal document that actually is a, that's why I wanted it as a rule of procedure, just because then it's more of an obligation rather than just here's some nice information that you can use, because the goal is that in 5-10 years from now, when we're all off of this board, that the meetings still take place the exact same way, assuming they're still an historic, everything. Yeah. So ideally, this would be something that if a brand new chair, a brand new member came in, whatever it is, they can look at this and go, so this is the way these specific meetings are meant to be run, right? And it's not just a suggestion, it's an obligation. That's the idea.
I am glad to search for bylaws.
Yeah, I
Oh, you
can,
can. I think. I could.
electronically. Yeah.
So maybe that's something, I mean, if we don't have anything on the agenda next time, we can talk about this after this is done, but that might be worth something to look at and see if we want to do anything with that.
And
Right.
I think if we don't, we should put it on the agenda for
Yeah,
next time,
yeah.
yeah.
In the meantime.
Yeah, exactly, thank you, Dan.
Sorry. Yeah, if everyone's happy with this, I think the idea of including it as an appendix to the bylaws is a neat idea. And we can say, for now, we'll table any discussion about bylaws, but make a motion that we include this as an amendment or an appendix that
Can you call it a
dictates
policy?
protocol.
Call it a policy?
Policy.
Yeah.
Call it board. Yeah, okay.
I make a motion that the Affordable Historic Advisory Board adopt said document of their procedure and or policy and or meeting format for formal review of applications.
Is there any other discussion?
Do we need a second?
We need
before
a
that?
second before
Yeah.
the discussion.
We need a second, but I thought we could.
Second, motion, second discussion.
Okay. Is there a second?
Am I allowed to second?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, I second.
So it should be a motion times 2. And is there any discussion?
Just that we're gonna work as a team to find a place to house these where they'll remain relevant
Mhm.
above and beyond tonight's meeting.
Yeah.
It's likely to be the appendix.
Mhm. Mhm.
Of the bylaws,
Yes.
which we will more actively provide to the members of the board and ourselves.
So it has been moved that the meeting rubric has, as it has been revised tonight, be accepted as the way that we will run reviews.
One thing I may ask is, so the word rubric, as I discovered today, is not as common a word as I thought it was. I think of it like a grading rubric, or apparently it goes all the way back to my high school days when my high school social studies teacher would use it for things like this, where it's an outline of a discussion, so to speak. I think she meant it more in the sense of the definition that refers to how church services are meant to be held, which is not what I'm. So do we want to call it something else? Do we want to call it a protocol, a procedure, a process?
Process maybe,
Okay.
review process.
Or a meeting? Well, it's not, it's part of the review process, so we want to maybe say something. Protocol. Protocol outline.
Good job, Team Thesaurus.
Yeah, right, exactly.
But I
So-
don't think it's more, well. The call to order, okay. With that piece in it, so what'd you call it, just a meeting protocol?
Is that all right? I mean, does that sound, should we look at the definition of protocol in case I get that wrong?
No, I think it's that.
Right, or outline. Living here.
Yeah, okay.
I'm calling it for the Fort Lowell Historic District Advisory Board.
Speaking of words that I've been using incorrectly, I think I've said the word litigious last time and I meant judicious. Just want to throw that out. So I don't know why my brain crossed those over, but yeah, not quite anything.
So we need to vote on this.
My motion is inclusive to any of these minor.
Right, okay.
I'll consider friendly amendment.
Okay, well,
Language of the 11th hour.
right.
All those in favor,
All right.
opposed? Ayes have it.
Oh, we were supposed to get Desiree to read it back to us. Whoops.
Would you like to read it back?
Member Briggs motions to adopt the meeting protocol / outline as the for Lowell policy / procedure / meeting format for formal review of applications. Seconded. There's no just. Well,
The only thing I would say is to be added as an appendix to the bylaws.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Discuss adding. I wouldn't say you're gonna add them till you look at the bylaws.
okay.
So-
Well, this goes back to the formal place in the world that it's gonna be an
Right, but it might
obligation.
not be appropriate.
Right.
Once you look at the bylaws, you might say it doesn't fit.
I think under discussion, it's.
Yeah.
Recommendation
To add it,
to
yeah.
add appendix to.
Yeah, and then I have under discussion. We'll work at the themed houses where they'll remain relevant about tonight's meeting. Likely to be appendix of bylaws. Can work with that.
Yeah.
And the vote was unanimous.
I think that encapsulated everything. I don't know.
Yeah. So given that, have we, I see that it's not on here, the, presentation guidelines?
So this is the
Do we
next element.
scrap it? Or,
We are obligated to scrap that, put it that way. Apparently we as a individual board cannot dictate how presentations must be done. I think you said the city is working on some such document, potentially an educational document that says what boards need to see.
Yes, so while can't necessarily adopt those, I definitely appreciate them and we'll see if maybe we can incorporate some of that into our practices, but generally we want to be sure that we're one, it's staff responsibility, as I mentioned earlier, to ensure that the applications are complete and to kind of we use the UDC and our existing policies to set what the requirements are. And in addition, we do want to make some process improvements, looking at things like checklists, things like that. I'm open to providing kind of a suggested format for presentations. But yeah, just want to make sure that we're providing that across the board to all the applicants and not kind of creating separate
Word by word.
yeah, we're
yeah.
ready for it. It just gets a little difficult to kind of manage all of that. And then create, it's important, I think, for applicants to have that consistency too, because they might have that. Well, also in marketing, want to have that consistency across the board.
I do want to mention related to that document that even though we can't require them as presentation elements. That document, I think, is a slightly clearer bullet point of the current city document that is just the resource checklist. And I requested this much earlier in my board tenure that the checklist is not really the appropriate tool that the board needs to do our homework leading into a meeting. But these elements do kind of combine to be fill in the blanks. So when we are at home looking at site plans and reviews, these are the topics that we should be reviewing and having an opportunity to take notes to better understand what we're gonna be discussing. And for me, I kind of abandoned the project because we're in this long holding pattern around the design guidelines. But I endeavored to bring the design guidelines, the UCD and the Secretary of Interior standards into a different type of support formatting for the reviews, which is that, like, the topic of height, for instance, that is spread out into 3 large bulking documents. And so I was endeavoring to extract the topic of height from each of those documents and put it together next to a fill in the blank. So that when I myself am looking at a height topic related to development in our zone, that I'm able to exactly reference the code, the design guidelines, and the Secretary of Interior standards when making that consideration. And also I would say was that at that time, it seemed the city was having a extreme development friendly outlook on the interpretation of code language, and it seems like it's a lot more balanced now. So like, but that the board can actually, so that we could actually cite the code at the time that we're making our motions. So I'm still excited to either self-complete this worksheet or have the support of the city to do it. However, to that effect, we have to get the design guidelines in place. The worksheet cannot be completed without having our design guidelines updated. So, and I know that's an agenda item tonight, but I don't think that that's lost work, Dan. I think that it's once again important for us to understand what the scope of our review process is.
Yeah.
And it's really these bullet points and or checkpoints from the checklist. And the checklist was actually what the initial document that I started building the worksheet off of. So
Okay.
yeah, I think you hear me loud and clear.
Yeah, we definitely, I agree, like the checklist that we have, all the different things, different areas and competitive, so, that's helpful to see, yeah, what Dan prepared and also how you're describing it, I think could be helpful too, because we created, I have a draft of a new checklist that sort of puts the topics together, but I don't know if we like provide all the specific, like, different references that we go at that, or, it's helpful to hear that, kind of, input, so, yeah, and we'll also provide, when we have a draft, we'll share it with you all if you have any feedback on it.
It's kind of like what this checklist does with where it says the code that we're calling on when we're making a condition or recommending a denial. It's because it's like it's the written code. We're not just pulling this from our feelings and emotions. It's being informed by our guiding documents.
Yeah.
Anyhow, it's exciting. Let's do these
Yeah.
guidelines. Is that the next
Yeah.
thing we're gonna do?
That's, yeah, it is. The
Just
design-
to that point, I just wanna, reiterate that I think I wanna ask, is the checklist you're developing, or have developed, or the one that the new one that's gonna sort of fix this, does that include these descriptive items? Like, is it solely a checklist, or is it also an educational document? Because the goal of this was less to be, part of the checklist. It was more to say for folks who are not as tuned into what these things mean, or
Yeah.
don't have a complete definition or a complete idea of what they mean, that we're all on the same page as a board, as the applicant, as a city, so is there going to be such a document?
So what we have drafted now is more of a checklist,
Yeah.
but I like that, I think it's a good idea, so, yeah, we'll use it and.
Nice.
take a
Yeah,
look
just
at it,
something to,
But.
cause I
Yeah,
think
I
even
think
having
it's
that,
a good
well,
resource.
like you say, while we go through the application, right, we can.
Mhm.
And maybe if you could send Desiree
It's,
I mean,
I can
Yeah.
share it
but
with
just
y'all.
an idea of like,
This was more of like a tool for the public, as opposed to like reviewing what is the scope of this
Well, I think-
board's review.
I think that's the idea, is that it helps on all fronts, right? It's like it's to get everybody on the same page. So it helps us to review it, because that's what, and then the applicant isn't blindsided when they get here, because they know what we're gonna review, right?
Yeah, so I think it's even, you can repurpose this
Yeah.
work into saying that these are the elements that are reviewed.
Yeah.
As opposed to saying this is what you're required to present, this
Right.
is what we're gonna look at
Sure.
regardless
Yeah.
of whether you present or not.
Yeah.
This is what we're looking at and what you should be thinking about as you prepare your
Yeah.
application and or presentation.
And I'm thinking for that courtesy review, this would be a wonderful clarification of
yeah.
what's going to happen at the next
Yeah.
meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's
That's perfect.
at the pre-app also, like, yeah, there's junctures. I didn't realize this was like for the applicants.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
stuff.
for everybody, yeah. That's the idea is that I think that we've seen a lot of, well, maybe not a lot, a number of presentations where we expect something to be presented to us and it's not. And we're like sitting here going, well, what about that part? And, you know, so if we have the applicants sort of there before, you know, if they understand that before they get to the meeting, it helps them probably even more than it helps us, but it helps us too, right?
Anything else on this? Because then we'll move on to the.
I just
guidelines.
found in my little book, in my little notebook.
There you go.
But
The bylaws. Is she good?
And they are
Dated.
Dated. They were last accepted and they are in the city record. Last accepted in 2019, but they haven't been revised since 2002.
Wow. Couple things have changed since you.
I'll email them with everybody.
Thanks.
Actually, I've
You just happened to
changed.
Just happened to happen. Okay. Design review guidelines.
So Jason's gonna provide some comments, but I do wanna say, you know, thank you for you've been exceedingly patient. The other advisory boards have also been very patient with us. We, you know, we've just been so focused on, you know, catch up with reviews and just kind of like the day-to-day, you know, things that we've been needing to do. But the guidelines, Jason, I'll turn it over to you and I'll share some of our thoughts around the visual aids.
Okay, so this is a conversation that Desiree and I had, and we looked it over, and a lot of the wording that goes into it, we feel that visual aids would be very good to go with your subsections. So we're talking about certain elements or features that you would like to be there. Visual aids showing what is appropriate in Port Lowell and give us the evidence. And it'd be good if you provide that visual aid and include, say, the address, so we know what it is. Plus, there's also if it is contributing historic, contributing non-historic, or non-contributing intrusion. And that would also go for matters where you have the language of this would not be appropriate in Fort Lowell. So again, we don't want an address, we don't want to call out anybody, but just a good example of this would be inappropriate or this would be incompatible. And these visual aids will really help complement the wording that you have in your design guidelines.
You're saying to include a visual aid that shows what wouldn't work.
It's
And what works and what works.
Okay.
Say, you know, this goes back to my days of doing design guidelines in Houston. We're talking about if you have a Craftsman bungalow, what are the doors that fit the Craftsman bungalow doors? Provide visual examples, and then provide one where you have, say, a Victorian on a Craftsman bungalow. That Victorian door would be example of this is inappropriate, incompatible, not only to the architectural style itself, but also the district. Does that make sense? Because
Yes, we requested support for visual aids from the city multiple times. That is above and beyond the scope of our board's capacity to provide these types of specific drawings, and we've requested the city to support us incorporating those into this document.
I wasn't saying that they're drawings, they're photographs.
Or photographs.
Right, I wasn't aware of that, so that is something we can probably help with. But yeah, I do think most, you know, design guidelines tend to have photographs, examples, or drawings, sketches. So yeah, if that's something that.
I haven't seen photographs in the guidelines. Well, in any of the other guidelines.
So, yeah, well, maybe not for, I mean, I think a lot of them, that you keep on our.
Drawings, yeah.
But, and so they're being updated, so.
So do
yeah,
you
this
have,
would
do you
be-
have?
So you're saying those that are in progress of being updated. The new guidelines of other boards have photos and examples.
Guidelines, like, just in general that I've seen outside of Tucson.
Oh, I see.
Just
Okay.
as a
Yeah,
general
yeah,
practice,
yeah.
with design guidelines,
Mhm.
that's a pretty.
And I would like to know if that's gonna hold up the approval of the guidelines. I mean, that's a project we could work on forever and ever and ever. But if we could at least get to know that what we've described as whatever the window treatment needs to be,
Mhm.
that we can have that stated in a guideline. And then we can go back and we can find where those photos are. We've got photos of different
We have
things.
thousands of photos,
Photos.
yeah.
And, or we might have something in particular that we know is good, and then you might won't come to my house and say, and this is not allowed, and I'm happy to have you do that. And
So actually, that brings up a good point, Jason, is that there's, in my mind, there's sort of a limited number, and this kind of goes just sort of in the same vein of just the logic of, let's say, reward versus punishment, right? You punish with something and you have an infinite number of other behaviors that can happen. Well, the same thing goes for, there's an infinite number of other things that we don't accept, right? Or that would be incompatible with the guidelines. So my question is, you say you want something that says, oh, this is what we're expecting, this fits with Fort Lowell. And do we really need something that says this doesn't? Because I think if people see this doesn't fit, they say, oh, well, it's not that. And so, double negative, that means they will accept it. And that's not the case, right? So I think, is it all right
This
to
is again,
include examples that we do find to be compatible with Fort Lowell?
yes, and one of the other components about these visual aids is it clears up ambiguity. You guys wrote it, you know in your minds what is appropriate and compatible. But to applicants, they don't quite understand. So these visual aids that you guys choose really helped clear up that ambiguity. Now, you can't have a visual aid for every little example, but it does kind of provide guidance to the applicants. And that's really what we're looking at.
Yeah.
And so, and I'm just going to say, I've heard things like, this is XYZ like. Oh, it's only like in the minds of the board members, but not to the applicants. And that's where visual aids come in as a very instructive guidance tool.
I agree totally. And because I've been trying to sort out these photographs, these thousands of photographs, because they came from past boards, past applicants, I literally have 4 boxes of photographs in my second bedroom, and trying to figure out a way to sort them. I also need some way to archive them so that they make sense. I'm not an archivist, right? So it would take us a long time to even sort them to the point where you could say, here are 5 examples of beautiful doors, or doors that fit in this neighborhood, right?
Well, I'm guessing none of these are digitized too.
Most of them are slides.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So does the city have resources to help with that? Like, could we give them to you and say, here's some things that would be good to digitize for the Fort Lowell Historic District? Maybe there's a.
Scan things like the photographs.
Yeah.
Slides, I don't know.
Yeah, slides
I
are,
know Damien does have a processes for
Right.
extracting slides to like high resolution.
Special scanners and stuff.
very slow.
Yeah.
Study for a history,
Exactly.
There you go.
Exactly.
because we do have the capacity to, in fact, it's free to the public to.
I saw that. Yeah,
digitize,
digitize.
yeah, all kinds of.
Yeah.
And Elaine, you said you have boxes of this. Do they have addresses of these on these slides?
No, most of them. Well, some of them, sometimes they're indices and sometimes they're not.
Okay.
I
So-
don't think we necessarily need the address, and I think if like a good example is gonna be a good example.
Right.
No,
Well,
but I
I
think
think-
you guys are been living in Fort Lowell. You can recognize which houses these are and what the address is. Even if you don't know the
Sometimes,
address, that's
yeah.
fine. But
Yeah.
instead of going through every single one, just take a sample selection and then just go through which ones would be good to fit our subsections on the architectural styles, elements, and features.
I'll have to show you these boxes, Jason. Come on over sometime.
You know,
No,
I
no, I
had a
agree.
grandmother who took photographs. I know slides and the old, rotating slide
Yes, yeah,
projector.
got one of those too.
Mm,
Yeah.
I can imagine just how many, what they look like.
I'd like to come back to my question, I mean, we might be able to do doors and windows really fast. I mean, they maybe, I mean, Elaine's case saying maybe not. But is that going to delay?
I've only been trying for 2 years, so.
Is that gonna delay, yeah, the design review guidelines? I just am so.
Yeah. I think the question is, can we get this through without adding these elements and maybe make a reference to these elements, right? Can we have this as an appendix that's listed somewhere else or, yeah,
Because we need to
Yeah.
move forward with adopting our guidelines. In fact, I'd like to hear if you have, I think we've discussed this visual elements for a minute. I'd like to hear if there are any additional recommendations about the guidelines besides the visual elements.
Um,
Well, I wanted, oh, go ahead, Desiree.
yeah, at this time, I know Terry has provided some feedback, I still do want to look at them. Once more, but yeah, I think that we can kind of look at maybe a phased, and put them forward and then come back with, kind of the second round.
I think that it's critical to get them adopted. right
We
now,
have to.
because we have a few conditions here where that I'm aware of that could cause us a problem if we don't have the current guidelines. Because we've gone through these so many times now, and we know what we want, and it's pretty specific. There's pretty specific directives in a lot of it. And I know someone's gonna come back because this happened at the last PRS. That they went back and said, are the new guidelines adopted? No, they're not. Then we're gonna use the ones from 2004. And actually, we knew that the ones from 2004 also would have done the same thing, but we couldn't be acknowledged. We weren't acknowledged in that meeting. Mary Lou's like waving her hand, right?
Sorry, and I know that it's taking a long time, just been inundated.
No, I understand. No, I'm not complaining, believe me.
We just, what step do we need to take to get things moving ahead?
I'd like to make a motion that the Fort Lowell Historic Advisory Board accepts the guidelines that we've been working on for multiple years in their current condition, and that we have an opportunity to go back and amend them with visual aids and other suggestions that the city wants to bring to the table. We have performed our duties to these
After they're-
guidelines, and I make a motion that we accept them. And that we have a priority as a board to get visuals incorporated on our next round of acceptance.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
The discussion I would like to add is that we have some minor changes to it,
That's.
and just to finalize the.
Do we want to go through those right now?
Really, there's no big changes here.
Yeah.
It's really grammar and
And you've recommended.
references.
We can, we can
So
accept that.
are there any
Part of the
substantive,
amendments.
No,
there's no substantive changes to wording is the question.
not really, no.
That's all we need to know.
Would like to amend my motion that it is inclusive to Elaine's grammatical clarifications in the guidelines draft 12.
Okay, so, any other discussion?
Can we hear the motion back?
I can, you want me to try it or? Oh, sure, okay. There was a motion made to accept the design before Lowell Historic District. Historic preservation.
Preservation is all
zone,
designed.
Design guidelines as now presented, draft 12, with inclusive to grammatical changes that
provided by PRS,
Uh, tell me again, provided
provided
by,
by PRS.
and. With the knowledge that some visuals and some changes will be brought forward, but for approval at a different time. So,
I think
That
that we're
goes-
accepting these as they
Yeah.
are. And we have a goal to add visuals at a completely
after they're
different
adopted.
process of review.
I would say after these guidelines have been adopted.
Correct, thank you, after the guidelines have been adopted.
Because otherwise it implies that, oh, we're gonna keep reviewing this over and over and till, yeah,
Well,
the end of time.
limited resources. It's the bottom line
Hmm?
to do this work.
Yeah, I mean, and it's just not gonna happen within the next. It may not be doable even within the next few months. I mean, it's like,
It's a very valid point,
Yeah.
though, but it's like crystal clear to us in our mind.
Yeah.
And
No, no,
like
yeah, it's fair.
not as
Yeah.
clear to the applicants, but certainly this language is way clearer than the current language
Right.
and. There are some minimal visuals provided, and I would love to have photographs instead of drawings. I think that's a great example, like what do we need an illustration when we have real world buildings
Yeah.
that we're
Mhm,
there's only 30-something buildings to compare your project to here.
it's true.
How did you do with the?
What do you do?
What do you have? That's right.
So I have never made a motion to adopt Fort Lowell for zone back design guidelines as presented in draft 12, inclusive of the grammatical changes provided by PRS, with the knowledge that some visual aids after these guidelines have been adopted. Included, added.
And it would be, it'll end up being 13. With the modifications.
Because you had mentioned in your initial motion about potential and if additional comments by staff. So you want to add that in, like if you motion to approve these, knowing that staff may have additional, like minor. Really.
I mean, the city's had a lot of opportunity to review these, we're ready to accept them. Like, how can we get these implemented before the next design review? That's what I'm after. From a practical standpoint, like, we've done a parlay that has been extensive, so from my perspective. The city has had their opportunity to put their input and we have complied with each and every request to do this dialogue, so. I'm just confused of where more additional comments are coming from when. We've just made grammatical changes and have not made any substantive changes.
Okay. I mean, basically the next step is, so the city manager will need to adopt this, so. I have not had a chance to go through, with a fine tooth comb, so I don't know, it's possible I won't have any comments, it's possible I might, there might be a few things or.
Is there a reason it can't go directly to the city manager?
So you have to make a recommendation.
Yeah, the planning department has to make a recommendation to the city manager, and then I
Gotcha,
don't know, the
okay.
city manager, they'll have comments, right?
Oh,
I
okay,
also
yeah.
don't know,
So it's
like the city attorney reviews it, right, so there's a. few things.
PRS, then you guys, then city manager, more of this, that, okay, yeah.
So that's the thing, if there are, there might not be, but if there
Yeah.
are additional things. I'm assuming you would wanna see what those changes are, that doesn't mean that.
Is it something that we can identify a representative that the city can do that with, can it make those adjustments with, so that we don't have to wait till the next meeting, go through it all again and then make, vote for it, blah, on and on and on. Cause that could happen a couple times and it's like if there's someone who you could go back and forth with and, would have the board's sort of best interest in terms of the guidelines, would that work? Or is it okay?
Yeah, I think
Do we
it
need to-
would be-
Yeah, and if there's a substantive change, the
We want-
representative could bring it to us and then we.
But I do think it's worth noting that the cities have their opportunity to review these and they should be in a condition that is acceptable to the city up to like. before getting put forward to do this formal process to be adopted. So,
I bet in fairness, I mean, they were reviewed by Dan and Quan. And you haven't had an opportunity here, if you're presenting the recommendation, but just
Yeah,
had
fair
an
enough.
opportunity to review.
even is in the organizational tree, isn't Corin above you?
Yeah, I just don't know what changes have been made since, or, right, so we just wanna make sure
Yeah,
that
who knows what
everything is
draft.
still.
That's something, that's interesting.
Yeah.
still-
So I think that's worth maybe including then,
in the
maybe
motion.
in the motion, maybe not, I don't know, but that instead of it be having any changes having to come back to this board. Unless there's substantive changes, right? Like an entire paragraph has to be taken out or something, right? That they be parlayed through a representative and that representative can approve those changes so that this gets on to the city manager.
I amend my motion to
Need more paper?
provide for the city to once again review this document before presenting it to the city manager. And under the assumption that no substantive changes are made to the guidelines, we want to see them escalated and implemented with urgency.
So, did you want to, assign someone?
I think Elaine Hill's been the primary author of these guidelines, and despite not being an active board member, she's the most qualified
I'm an
representative.
associate member. actually.
Associate.
By our bylaws.
Associate member, yeah.
You are hereby, and I did not.
And that
By deputy.
Elaine, associate member Elaine, represent this board through this final parlay with the city. Hopefully before our next board meeting, so that if the next tier of review, which seems to include the city attorney. City manager, can come back to our next board meeting. Sorry, Desiree, do you want me to try a fresh motion?
1 second.
I can withdraw my motion and try a fresh one if that would be better.
Or do you want to read that back?
Can we both?
It might be more condensed, but feel free to, we can add to it. Member Briggs made a motion to adopt Fort Lowell Historic Zone defined guidelines as presented in draft 12. Inclusive of the grammatical changes provided by PRS. With the knowledge that some visual aids after these guidelines have been adopted will be added. I'll say, you know, say that some visual aids will be added. You just say at a future date, to future.
But I think making it clear that the guidelines can be adopted without them is important, because we don't want that to hold us up. That's the goal.
But that is. That ends. Intended after. So we have. Inclusive of the grammatical changes provided by the PRS. And assigns or designates. Associate. Member. To represent. The advisory board.
To approve
Yeah. to empower-
non-substantive changes to the guidelines. And encourage
Right.
urgent.
During the final,
Yeah.
or the remainder of the city.
Mhm, good.
Sure.
Be okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
City approval process.
Thank you.
When.
Lucky I'm you do it all along. Thank you.
Have a slide party.
Including my brother.
And with the knowledge that some visual aids will be added after guidelines. As part of a revision, second phase on that.
Sure.
I mean, I guess that's why I was asking, does it need to be in the guidelines proper? Can it be like an appendix that is, referred to in the guidelines, right? Can we publish something that's like, here, I mean, we could even publish, a gajillion examples in some, if you guys have some storage space somewhere, then,
Take the feedback,
know.
it's like a common guidelines practice that's
Yeah.
not happening in Tucson.
yeah,
But a contemporary practice, especially if you think about people accessing these
Sure.
on a computer,
sure.
is to have
So
visual aids incorporated. We have,
in that case, it will have to be a separate,
yeah,
a separate
We could say,
instance of,
thing and have been adopted as part of the leader. Like the idea, but.
yes, they will be.
we urgently need these new guidelines in place. I'd like to add something about urgency.
Okay.
I can't wait for there to be pictures in them, to tell you the truth.
Oh, I think it would be wonderful,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, that's a huge project.
Mhm.
and we're gonna have to agree on what they do. I mean, that's huge too, but
No, I think I haven't. Down here at all.
Yeah, one more time.
Member Briggs made a motion to adopt Fort Lowell historic zone design guidelines as presented in draft 12, inclusive of the grammatical changes by PRS. And designates Associate Member Elaine Hill to represent the executive board. To approve non-substantial changes to the guidelines during the remainder of the city approval process, and that the guidelines be adopted with urgency. And with the knowledge that some visual aids will be added after these guidelines are adopted as part of the later.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you, Desiree. Good collaboration.
Thanks a lot.
That represents my words.
good job, you guys. I love moving that, and, okay, anything else on design review guidelines, pictures? We need, I put down here selection and election of
We
officers.
have to finish this motion though, right?
We haven't- no. Whoops,
Don't like that.
the important part.
We're all.
Okay, so that's the motion.
So it's been moved, it's been seconded.
Is there any other discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I motioned.
Aye. Anybody, any nays? Anybody against? So the ayes have it, we will move forward with that. Thank you. Okay, anything else? Okay, so selection and election of officers in the board. You have done the co-chair for a long time.
Yes, what I've done?
And I have been chair for a long time, and I think that the part that I would like to state is that I think you're happy with what you're doing. Or would you like to rotate, or is there somebody who would like to rotate to a new position? Of what they are doing?
How about you?
Yeah, but
I'm okay doing what I'm doing, but I also feel like, I'm a little stuck at times and would appreciate people coming forward, and I am happy to. If somebody's interested, I'm also happy to step away and still stay on, I'd like to stay on the board as well, but I don't see a need to be this chairperson. If somebody else is coming
Briggs and
forward.
Dan, do you have an interest in serving as the chair? And
Under normal circumstances, I'd say yes, but I've got a few big life changes coming that I think might take a little too much time.
You want me to do it?
It's up to you, buddy.
Yeah. No, I really cannot function as a chair, just not really able to do that, so I don't know where that is us.
Thank you, Mary Lou.
Well, I'll continue and I will check with Margot,
Yeah.
but I would like you to know that I'm I'm always willing to try to do this better. I am hoping that we can, I just want us to be a good functional group of people to meet. And that, I don't feel like as chair, I have any more, other than organizing power, make sure people get here, that I don't feel like I have any other skills that come with that. So I'm happy to have had the opportunity to make changes and to be part of that. And, but I want to be sure that you feel like
Think you're doing great.
represented,
Yeah.
you're
No,
comfortable with
you,
what's going on.
you come with the added
And-
advantage that you're typically far more diplomatic than if I speak for myself anyway. So it's I don't know that I would be as as nice. Which is a good thing. You're very yeah.
Assessment too.
Yeah, anyway, okay, well, if nice wins.
Nice wins, for sure. No, we need people to like us when they come through here, honestly. So you help with that.
I think the rate of this is, I think one of the opportunities we've had is because we have city support. We have city representation that makes sense
Mhm.
to us now. I have heard again recently that there is still some push from SHPO to disband the historic district boards. You've not heard that. And, but I do feel like we are much more kindly received than we had been in the past. We understand decisions that are made better even if we don't like them. And I think that makes a huge difference in being able to work together here and really want to move forward that way. And I always laugh at the amount of passion that shows up at this table because we don't care about whether or not somebody's window looks right, but we do. And that's the job we've accepted as being part of that board. So we really appreciate what you do because I can only imagine how that sounds.
So definitely, thank you. Your collaboration is
Yes.
refreshing and
Well
welcome.
said. Thank you.
Okay.
That's all. Really.
Yeah, because I'm nice. Thank you. I really appreciate y'all. Any other discussion on that? Any other? I think, we could continue to push Elaine to become a regular member.
I'm just not, I've got too many other projects going on here.
And there are other people that we need to contact, and I would love help with
Yeah.
that, because that is not, I'm
Yeah.
not good at that. And I know that Elaine had several suggestions for people
Mhm.
in the neighborhood that might be good selections for us, and if somebody would be willing to help with that, making these contacts. And seeing if they do need to sit in, observe what we do, to see if they are really interested and willing. But I think in expanding our board membership will be to all our advantage. Anybody willing to help?
I think the telegraph could be a good tool for us, just generally as part of our endeavor to do public outreach more, encouraging people to come to the courtesy reviews at the onset of thinking about doing projects, and also that there's an opportunity to serve on this board. Could be a recruitment tool for us. I know that I read the newsletter, it's content rich, so I'm sure that the neighborhood association would be happy to allow us to communicate a call to the neighborhood.
I guess I have some.
They can't get on the board without approval.
Yeah, but they're my neighbors.
Okay, I see.
And there, I do have some,
You'd like to see more targeted recruitment.
yeah, and I think we are really looking for specialists. So
Yeah,
that
ideally,
and
we're kind of
the-
lacking right now, aren't we?
There were a couple of names that one.
Archaeologists,
Oh, yeah.
historians,
Mhm.
architects.
Were the names that?
We have a couple of names, yeah.
I know, okay. I
Let's
was
just talk about it offline instead of
like, yeah.
Here, okay,
recorded, yeah.
thank you. Thanks.
Did you all, the agenda said election, so do you need to do an election, or this is just kind of a check-in?
So it can be done a declaration.
Bylaws, bylaws. Like,
I can make a motion. I motion that the board chair and board vice chair continue in their roles.
I think I should step away from vice chair.
Oh,
I mean, is that a normal office that we?
or co-chair.
Co-chair.
Is,
Co-chair.
oh,
Co-chair.
okay. That's what it says.
Oh,
Is
sorry,
there-
Dave, I didn't mean to. I'm gonna withdraw my motion while we chat. a little.
Well, no, that's okay. We can continue with businesses.
Do we need a motion?
Please check in bylaws.
I think it might, just because it was an agenda and for the LAR, it might be good.
It doesn't really talk about officers.
I motion that our chair
Okay,
and coach.
officers, chair, vice chair, secretary and treasurer. Secretary and treasurer may not, or may not be members of the board.
Hmm.
Officers are elected by the majority of the board members. Treasurer shall be appointed. 1-year terms.
Your term. 1 year.
So we're supposed to have a secretary and a treasurer, who knew?
Well,
Well, essentially, this is when the secretary took notes too, though. Right,
Yeah.
I mean, this is when
Well-
we had to produce every
We
document.
probably should still have that.
I mean, this still says that we have to have a rubber stamp to stamp the plans, so
And the
Is
treasurer.
your term?
We have funds.
she's a treasurer.
I'm
She's a treasurer.
I'm the treasurer
Oh, you're-
because the accounts said my name.
So if they're 1-year terms, when is your term up? And.
Oh.
You have to check
Still
the-
Is it
then
the
you
roster?
probably don't Need to.
The chair has a 1-year term as well?
Yes.
Oh. Uh-oh.
I think we reached term expiration. I feel like this happened about a year into my tenure and I'm going into my 3rd year now.
Oh.
And how long are board member terms?
Or the,
4 years. 4 years.
4 years.
City, that's a city.
Oh, that's the same
Yeah.
thing.
Or it is
It's
4
4
years. It is
And you
4
can-
years.
Serve more than one,
You can
Right,
serve
right.
2 consecutive.
I don't know, that's it.
so 8 years total, you can be on the
You
board,
take
1 year off.
1 year off.
come back. Suffer
Another
again.
8 years.
I know, I'm I was like. Was when I started.
I motion that we continue with our current chair and vice chair. Thank you for your continued service.
Do we? Are we allowed to do that with the bylaws? Like that was what I was wondering, is this?
Yeah, it says
We
election.
we can continue their,
Collect
term.
every year,
okay, yeah. There are no term limits for the chair positions, in other words.
except for their term itself.
Well, yeah, I mean, outside of this, outside of the standard term limits for the board.
So. Is there a second for that?
Second,
Is there any discussion?
we've already done it inadvertently.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Can I do that?
Did you vote against, did you vote against it?
I have to really enjoy. Thank you. Okay, thank you. This is.
Thanks,
good.
everyone.
Okay, the meeting is adjourned at 7:15. 14.
Thanks, Jason.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Jason. I'm gonna get
You're
kidding.
welcome, guys. You have a
all
nice
over
evening.
these photos. That's.
We recruit Amy into help.
We do need